The rain drummed against the cracked pavement, pooling in the uneven crevices where the city had long neglected repairs. Streetlights flickered erratically, some darkened completely, their bulbs shattered or long dead. A slow mist curled from the asphalt, carrying the scent of gasoline from the nearby patrol car idling at the curb. The hum of its engine was the only sound besides the distant wail of a siren, lost somewhere in the night. Officer Brett Calloway adjusted the belt around his waist, the leather creaking as he shifted his stance. His uniform was damp from the humidity, but he barely noticed. What he did notice was the man standing in front of him, tall, poised, and inconveniently calm. The suspect. A black man in a pressed dark suit, his tie perfectly knotted, his posture unnervingly straight for someone in his situation. He didn't fidget, didn't look around for help. He simply watched, his expression unreadable. That irritated Calloway. Usually, they looked away. Usually, they tried to explain themselves, stammering out half-baked excuses. This one just stood there. "You got some ID?" Calloway asked, his voice sharp, expectant. The man reached into his jacket with slow, deliberate movements, pulling out a sleek leather wallet. No hesitation, no sign of nerves. He slid out a driver's license and handed it over. Calloway barely glanced at it before making a dismissive noise. "This address ain't local. What brings you out here?" "I don't see how that's relevant," the man replied evenly. His voice was smooth, controlled, like he had all the time in the world. Calloway narrowed his eyes. "See, that's your first mistake. When a cop asks a question, you answer." The man gave a faint, humorless smile. "I didn't realize standing on the sidewalk was an offense now." "You people always got a smart mouth," Calloway muttered, stepping closer. The rain beaded on his shoulders, trickling down the stiff fabric of his uniform. His grip tightened around his flashlight, knuckles flexing. "Always thinking the rules don't apply to you." A gust of wind rattled the metal signpost nearby. The sound of water dripping from the overhang of a shuttered liquor store filled the silence between them. "You got a record?" Calloway asked, tilting his head. The man raised an eyebrow. "Run my name and find out." That did it. The defiance, the absolute lack of fear. Calloway stepped forward, closing the distance between them. He could smell the faint trace of cologne under the rain. Something expensive, something that didn't belong out here. "You one of those corporate types. Thinking that suit makes you special." Calloway's lip curled. "Let me tell you something. Are you sure you want to record this?" The man interrupted. Calloway stiffened. The suspect's gaze flicked downward, just briefly, to the body cam strapped to Calloway's vest. The red light blinked steadily, capturing everything. For a moment, the only sound was the distant hum of the patrol car's engine, the whisper of rain hitting metal. Calloway knew the drill. They were supposed to keep the cams on. Policy. Transparency. All that bureaucratic nonsense shoved down their throats ever since the protests started making headlines. But policies had loopholes. With a practiced motion, he reached up and pressed the button. The red light vanished. The man watched him. Didn't say a word. Didn't have to. "Turn around," Calloway ordered. The man didn't move. "Under what charge?" "You're loitering. And I don't like your attitude." A flicker of something passed through the man's eyes. Amusement. Pity? "Loitering," he repeated, as if tasting the word. Then, in a voice quiet enough to make Calloway's skin crawl, he said, "That's the best you've got." "Turn around," Calloway snapped. His patience was gone. He was done with the smugness, the superiority. The man didn't resist as Calloway grabbed his wrist, twisting it behind his back. His other hand went to his radio. "Got a 10 to 91. "Bringing him in," he said, ignoring the static-filled reply. The suspect let out a slow breath. "You sure about this, officer?" Calloway yanked the cuffs from his belt, snapping one around the man's wrist. "I don't need your advice, boy." For the first time, the man's expression shifted. Not anger, not fear, something colder. "You should," he murmured. And then, as Calloway shoved him toward the squad car, his voice cut through the night like the crack of a gunshot. "Because tomorrow, you're going to wish you never met me." The words sent a ripple of unease through Calloway's gut. But it was too late now. He had made his choice, and he had no idea just how much it would cost him. Officer Brett Calloway stood in the precinct's dimly lit processing room, arms crossed over his chest, watching the black man he had arrested sit calmly in the interrogation chair. The man's posture hadn't changed since the moment he stepped inside. Back straight, hands resting lightly on the table, expression unreadable. Even now, cuffed, damp from the rain, he looked in control. That pissed Calloway off. "You got a name?" Calloway asked, pacing. The man didn't answer. He glanced at the two-way mirror instead, the faintest flicker of amusement crossing his face, as if he knew who was watching. Calloway leaned forward, resting his knuckles on the table. "Listen, smartass, you think that suit means something in here. Out there, maybe. But in here, you're just another asshole who thought he was above the law." The man exhaled softly. Not a sigh, not frustration. Something almost bored. Then, slowly, deliberately, he reached inside his jacket pocket. Calloway's hand went to his gun. "Don't move." The man ignored him and placed a slim leather wallet on the table. He flipped it open, revealing a badge. Not a police badge. Something else. Something federal. Calloway felt his stomach tighten. The words hit him like a sledgehammer. Judge Marcus Langston. U.S. District Court. Silence. Calloway's breath hitched. He barely heard the hum of the old AC unit or the faint radio chatter from the other room. The fluorescent light overhead buzzed like a trapped wasp. His throat went dry. Langston, Judge Langston, tilted his head. "I assume that changes things." Calloway opened his mouth, but no words came out. The room suddenly felt suffocating. He glanced at the two-way mirror. Had the captain seen this? The DA. "Listen," he started, his voice suddenly hoarse. This is." Langston pulled out a second item, a small, sleek recording device. He pressed a button. A familiar voice filled the room. "I don't need your advice, boy." The blood drained from Calloway's face. Langston pressed pause. "That's you, Officer Calloway, just in case you had doubts." Calloway shook his head. "Wait, this is a misunderstanding." Langston leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. "You thought my color made me weak, made me powerless." His voice was low, controlled, dangerous. "You thought you could shut off your camera and own the night." Calloway swallowed hard. Langston leaned forward, his voice ice-cold. "You were wrong." Calloway's mind raced. He needed an out. Something. "This wasn't personal," he blurted out. It's standard procedure. Suspicious behavior, non-compliance." Langston clicked his tongue. "Suspicious behavior." He let the words settle, as if rolling them in his mouth. "Standing on the sidewalk in a suit. That's suspicious now." Calloway opened his mouth, closed it. He was sweating. Langston let the silence stretch, then picked up his phone. He dialed a number and pressed it to his ear. "Marvin?" "Yes." "It's Langston. I need you to listen to something." Calloway's hands clenched into fists. Langston pressed play again. "You people always got a smart mouth. I don't need your advice, boy." A low voice rumbled through the phone. "Jesus Christ, Marcus, where are you?" "The precinct," Langston answered. "Yes." "Him." He paused, then smirked. "No, I haven't decided yet." The voice on the other end turned serious. "Want me to call the AG?" Calloway's knees almost buckled. Langston tapped a finger against the table. "I'll let you know." He ended the call and slid the phone back into his pocket. Calloway licked his lips. "Listen, I didn't know who you were." Langston's gaze sharpened. So if I were just another black man, This would have been fine. Calloway took a half step back. No, I didn't mean. Langston leaned down, unfastened the cuff on his wrist with practiced ease, and let it drop onto the floor with a metallic clink. Calloway stared at it. The sight of the broken restraint sent a chill down his spine. Langston exhaled slowly. You see, officer, here's your problem. He stood, adjusting his suit cuffs. You thought your badge made you untouchable, that your uniform gave you all the power in the world. He glanced at the old Confederate flag hanging in the far corner of the room. Faded, barely noticeable, but there, still there. His lips curled. That's the thing about power, he murmured. It shifts. Calloway took another step back, his breath quickening. Langston looked him dead in the eye. And as of this moment, he said softly, yours is gone. The door behind them swung open. Captain Reynolds stood in the doorway, face pale, eyes locked onto Langston. Judge Langston, Reynolds said carefully. There's been a mistake. Langston's smile was razor sharp. Oh, I know. He turned to Calloway one last time. And by tomorrow, he said, so will everyone else. Calloway's world cracked open. The city burned with voices. Thousands filled the streets, their chants echoing between the glass and steel of downtown. Cardboard signs bobbed in the air, their messages stark against the night. Justice for all. Dismantle the system. Calloway must go. A line of police officers stood near the courthouse steps, helmets on, hands gripping riot shields. But no tear gas had been fired, no orders to disperse had been given. Not tonight, not when the world was watching. Because the world was watching. Every major news network had picked up the story. CNN, MSNBC, even reluctant murmurs from Fox. The recording had been leaked less than 24 hours after Judge Marcus Langston walked out of that precinct. You people always got a smart mouth. I don't need your advice, boy. The words had played on loop, dissected by analysts, condemned by officials, repeated by protesters who screamed them back at the buildings that housed the very system that had allowed them to exist. Officer Brett Calloway had become a name no one would forget. The front door slammed so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. Christ, Rebecca, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. His wife's voice was shrill, edged with something deeper than anger. Disgust. I had to pick up Zach from school today. Do you know what that was like? Do you even care? Calloway's stomach knotted. Where is he? His answer came when his son appeared at the top of the stairs. Zach was 15. Tall, lanky, with freckles across his nose that he used to be proud of before he decided they made him look like a kid. Calloway expected anger, screaming maybe. But the boy just stood there, silent, gripping the railing like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Zach, Calloway started. You know this isn't. You said you weren't like them. Calloway froze. His son's voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through him sharper than any protest outside ever could. You said you were a good cop, Zach continued, his throat bobbing as he swallowed, that it was just a few bad ones making us look bad. But you're. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Rebecca wiped at her eyes. I'm filing the papers, she said. Tonight. Calloway barely heard her. His ears were still ringing with his son's words. You said you weren't like them. The Langston reforms were fast-tracked through the city council within weeks. Mandatory bias training for officers. Civilian oversight committees granted actual power. The street where Calloway had made his last mistake was officially renamed Langston Way. A small brass plaque was drilled into the brick wall outside the precinct. Here, one man challenged the system, and the system lost. The flag that had hung in the back room of the station, the faded Confederate relic, was gone. No ceremony, no press, just removed, as if it had never been there. The interview was Judge Marcus Langston's first and only. CNN's cameras framed him perfectly. No shadows, no distractions, just his face, calm and composed as ever. The reporter leaned in. Some say this was just one officer, a bad apple, that this doesn't mean the system is broken. Langston's lips curled in something close to a smile. The system doesn't break, he said. Not on its own. A pause. It cracks. A slow inhale. And every time we speak up, every time we refuse to stay silent, another crack forms. You might not see it today. Maybe not even tomorrow. He met the camera's gaze directly. But one day, those cracks will be too big to ignore. And then, he sat back, adjusting his cuffs. Then the whole damn thing comes down. The screen faded to black, and the city roared.